We have a full moon in Sagittarius, Jupiter ruled with Jupiter in exaltation. I'm so excited about it. There's some things we do have to talk about. It's happening on June 11th, and I want to dive into this with you right now over the next few minutes. Hi, my name is Crystalline Sophia. I'm your friendly astrological magician, and this is going to be your review and preview of not only the astrology behind this full moon, what we can look at, what we can think about, a little bit more than just what you might find in your typical spirituality practice. And then also how we can use this to apply some folk magic tradition to it. What you can actually do with this full moon if you want to feel in alignment, if you want to use the energy of it. It's a really optimistic full moon with some strings that we want to be aware of. So let's dive into the chart now, and I will show you what I'm talking about. All right, so here we have an overview of this full moon happening on June 11th, as you can see right over here. It's around 3:43 a.m., so it's a very early situation. If you wanted to be out under the full moon itself, you would want to wake up pretty early on the East Coast or stay up rather late if you're on the West Coast of the United States. However, the cool thing is in astrological magic, you don't want to work with the exact full moon because an exact full moon is an opposition between the sun and the moon. This is actually an affliction. So to work with the exact full moon, you'd be getting a moon that is in tension with the sun. In this case, it's actually okay if you wait a couple hours and do it later when the moon has had some time to move. Now, if you're doing anything magical, I'll just say this right away. If you wanted to use the energy of Sagittarius, you just want to make sure that by 9:54 p.m. East Coast time, you get that magic done because that way you still have the full moon in the sign of Sagittarius. Around 10 p.m. East Coast time on June 11th, you can see here, the moon will move into Capricorn. This is the sign of the moon's detriment. The moon will still be full, but it's a whole different sign in energy. So if you want that Jupiterian ruled energy of Sagittarius, make sure you do it sometime during the day on the 11th. Anytime you want, because by the time you wake up, the moon will have gotten some movement in it, and that affliction from the sun will be separating. So let's look into this a little bit more, right? We already isolated the moon. The astrology here shows something interesting. The moon here is at what we call the bend of the nodes. And you can see the moon's at 20 degrees of Sagittarius. The nodes are at 22 degrees of North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo. This is called the bend of the nodes. Why? Because it creates like a little square here, right? There's a 90-degree situation going on. So this full moon shows that we are halfway between the two eclipse seasons of the year. So our previous eclipse season back in March occurred, and now we are halfway to the next eclipse season, which will occur, I believe, in September. So those are the things that we get to see just at a glance on the chart. We are halfway between eclipse seasons right now at the bend of the nodes. And so we notice that the moon and the sun are square to those nodes. So this puts us halfway between these climactic moments that can cause the opportunity for disruption. I really want to credit Ali Alomi for mentioning that in his talk in Norwalk this year, that eclipses are the opportunity for disruption. Disruption is not always a bad thing. It just moves things that need to be moved. So we can use that energy during eclipses, or we can honor that energy during eclipses. Magically, you do not use eclipses for magic as a general rule of thumb, but we don't have to worry about that yet. We'll talk about that more in a couple months when the eclipses come back around. For now, the other thing that we want to keep in mind is that we have this close aspect with Mars. So Mars is the next aspect the moon will make. So the next conversation the moon has is going to be with Mars. If you imagine this like you're texting, right? In the day when you know you have to message certain people, you know that by the end of today, you need to reach out to Mars and have a conversation. Now, it's a trine, so it's a good conversation. No one's in trouble. But Mars is Mars, right? So it's the personality of Mars that we're having a conversation with about nothing necessarily bad. In this case, what that gives us is Mars is kind of giving a supportive ambition, right? Mars is doing a little bit better. This is a nighttime chart, so Mars is actually also not as cranky as Mars would normally be. And so with Mars right now, we're seeing this ambition, this energy, this impulse to do something. Mars is in Leo. We might be thinking about what's really important to us with this, how we want to express ourselves, what we can't wait anymore to do or break free of because the moon is in Sagittarius. How can we express ourselves? How can we feel freedom? How can we feel our agency as much as possible so that we get to be the biggest and best version of ourselves? So those impulses may be prevalent at this time, especially if Sagittarius is a prominent sign in your chart. What I mean by prominent sign would be if it's your rising sign, which would be the sign that is at the 9 o'clock point of your chart. If it's your midheaven sign, which would be the one at the top of your chart. If it's maybe your descending sign, which is opposite of the ascending sign, so it's at the 3 o'clock point of your chart, or if it's the fourth house sign, your imum coli sign, which would be at the very bottom of your chart. If it's one of these four signs or one of these four houses for you, then you may feel this more than the typical person because it's happening in a more potent space of your experience. Also, if you happen to be in a year where Sagittarius is activated by annual perfection or some other timing technique, if you don't know what those are, schedule a consultation with me. I'll help you out and we'll know exactly what's going on for you this year. So, this is what we're working with, right? And then we get into the idea of the ruler of the lunation, just making sure that I've got everything here. I do. Cool. So, moving on to Jupiter. Jupiter rules Sagittarius. So, we want to look for Jupiter in the chart and see how Jupiter is doing. If you have a manager, you want that manager to be in a good mood, right? And so Jupiter is the moon's manager. And so we look to Jupiter and say, is Jupiter in a good mood? And actually, you guys, yes, yes, Jupiter is. I'm so excited about this. Jupiter is finally getting into the sign of his exaltation. So Jupiter is doing really well. In fact, Jupiter just got a raise from whoever's above him, right? So this is really good energy to be working with. Now, we've isolated Jupiter in the chart. Jupiter does, however, have some energy that we're working with here. At this same time, just a few days after this, about 4 days after this full moon, Jupiter is going to perfect this square with Saturn. Saturn is the supervisor of Jupiter in a sense in this case, right? Doesn't rule Cancer, that's actually the moon. So the moon and Jupiter, if you look here, the moon in Sagittarius and Jupiter in Cancer, they don't see each other by aspect, but they do share what's called mutual reception. The moon is in Jupiter's house and Jupiter is in the moon's house, and they find that really cute for each other. So now we look at Jupiter and we say Jupiter's doing fantastic, but Jupiter is on the line with someone who is stern, right? So we have this square that's coming up, which is actually another really important thing in a greater cycle. The Saturn Jupiter square has happened 3 times over the last year, but they've happened in different ways. The first and second Saturn Jupiter square had Saturn in Pisces, where Saturn has no dignity, no debility, so it's pretty neutral. But Jupiter was in Gemini. And so being in Gemini, Jupiter was in detriment. Since Jupiter rules Sagittarius, the opposite of rulership is detriment. And so when Jupiter was in this sign, the opposite of the one that he rules, he was considered to be in detriment. He didn't have everything he needed to function the way he would like to. And so this is the third and final square between the two of these. They squared 3 times because of their retrograde cycles. So when a planet moves forward, it can stop and move back. These two do it every year. And so as they moved forward and backward in their slow motions, they met up a couple times. And this will be the last time. Both planets are now direct. Jupiter moves a little bit faster than Saturn. So Jupiter here at 0 will catch up to Saturn in a couple days and then surpass Saturn. The difference now, though, is where Jupiter was detriment before, Jupiter is now exalted. And where Saturn was neutral before, Jupiter is now in fall. So another thing we can talk about is exaltation, right? Jupiter's exalted in Cancer. Saturn is exalted in Libra, but the opposite of exaltation, much like the opposite of domicile, the opposite of exaltation is fall. So where people celebrate you when you're exalted, here you're kind of getting tomatoes, right? So Saturn is not getting the support Saturn would normally want or need to do Saturnian things. In this case, that might be a good thing because we would prefer the Jupiterian things. So while they are square to each other, Jupiter is saying all the good things, all the bonification, have all the good things, go for it. Saturn is saying, don't forget your responsibilities. Don't forget things that need to be maintained and taken care of in order for you to have fun. It's just saying, don't neglect your responsibilities as you have a good time. As my mom used to say, have fun and be safe or be good. I think it was have fun and be good, not necessarily in that order. So this is a have fun and be good, not necessarily in that order kind of situation where Saturn is saying, you're having a good time, but don't forget to take responsibility for yourself. So those are things that we can consider as we're going into this full moon. There's a lot happening, right? Also, on the same day, we'll notice that Mercury and Venus are having a conversation. So if we go to Mercury and Venus here, yeah, Mercury is separating from that square with Saturn. I'm not too concerned with it because it is separating, but Mercury moves faster than Venus. So Mercury is going to catch up to Venus on this day, and this little blue line here is going to be very active. Mercury and Venus are good. Venus is also in her domicile, so we have both benefics doing really well, while both malefics are just in neutral or actually restrictive places for them. So this is actually a really good time. I'm excited about this. And we have Venus and Mercury in this sextile, just making communication and relationships potentially even easier. And that's something that I would look forward to as well. So overall, a really nice full moon, as long as we don't forget to check our boxes, dot our I's and cross our T's and all those things. Think before you act, but have a good time. Maybe that's a good way to put it. In fact, the way I would summarize this is that it's a time to take actions that lead to freedom and comfort for you. So this would mean that you can do something that if something feels like it's holding you back, if you're feeling that Saturnian pressure on you, you can go ahead and say, with this full moon, I'm going to lean into releasing things, right? The moon's waning in light now. I'm releasing things. I'm lessening the energy there as well. So you can make a plan or take some actions to remove blocks, obstacles, or bad habits that are holding you back. And those are some things that I would do in alignment with this moon. If you are a Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, Sun, Moon, or Rising, again, you may notice this a little bit more than the average person. And if you have Sagittarius or Jupiter as a active or Time Lord situation, then you may also notice this as well. Again, if you don't know what those are, that's okay. Schedule a consultation with me. I'll explain it and I'll let you know what's important for you so you can work with that. So the way that I would apply this energy, an affirmation or a spell, if you will, is actions lead to freedom and comfort, right? So our affirmation is, I am ready to receive what is for me. I'm ready to receive all that is for me. I'm ready to receive everything that is for me. And just know that some of those things may be new responsibilities. Some of those things may be abundances and freedoms that you didn't realize you had coming. Whatever it is, it's leading you to a greater expression of yourself and ultimately leading you to freedom. Even if the situation is this is something you need to handle before you feel that freedom, it's still the promise that freedom is on the other side of that effort. So I hope that you have a wonderful full moon in Sagittarius and that I see you in a couple weeks again to have another situation where we can talk about the new moon in Cancer that's coming up. If you want to work with me some more, the Modern School of Ancient Wisdom Patreon is where I do all of my work with students and teaching and all that kind of stuff. There is a free tier. And if you want a consultation with me, you can go to crystallandsophia.com and schedule a consultation there. I will look forward to the honor and pleasure of meeting you.